I'll be safe from Satan when the thunder rolls. Just gotta help me keep the devil way down.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Source Material Comics Podcast. I think we're getting into episode 253 right here on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network. So this evening, we are going to be talking a second round of Gotham Central. And to tell us why we're doing that, the only Mark Radulich is here.
Well, initially, Andrew Graham is the one that pitched this to us, and unfortunately, he wasn't able to make the first show, and then he wasn't able to make the show tonight for whatever the reasons were. But he did mention that the second volume of the trade dealt with stories that took place around Christmas. So this being the month of December, it's Christmas time in the city, unless you're a Jew or a Muslim.
I think it's Christmas time in Hollis, Queens.
Oh, shit. Mom's cooking dinner and collard greens. So, like we always like to do something holiday related around this time of year, us being folks that celebrate ye olde Christmas. So what better way to celebrate Christmas than with Joker shooting at shoppers with a sniper rifle?
Yeah. Oh boy, it's Christmas time in Gotham, and that's an interesting season, that's for sure. 'Tis the season, as they say, so okay, well.
It's Christmas time in Gotham City. Everyone's shopping and feeling shitty.
Yeah, well, if you live in Gotham, I guarantee you're probably looking over your shoulder every other day, probably every other hour. It's a dangerous place to live, and we've done Gotham Central before, and so we kind of know what we're getting into. This is Greg Rucka. This is Ed Brubaker. Police procedural. If you remember correctly, when we covered Volume 1, that's what it very much felt like. I think if I remember right.
The Law and Order of DC Comics.
That's right. I think I did my synopsis, which I got to remember when I do my synopsis for this one. I've got to make it. I've got to put that bong bong there right at the beginning of every synopsis. So yeah, we've got 12 issues. Oh boy, Mark Radulich again. So yeah, issues 11 through 22 of Gotham Central. This came out first issue, which was issue 11, hit stores September 10th, 2003. So we're going back a little ways. What was that, 16 years now? My goodness. And we're going to kind of break it up tonight in 4 parts, and we're not going to really discuss a whole lot. Like I told Mark, I'm not going to synopsis everything on here to him, but I will have a canned synopsis ready to go. And we'll just kind of talk what we thought about each story, and then we're going to call it that before Mark actually falls asleep or has a snot attack, one or the other.
I haven't taken the Mucinex yet, so I'm good for a little while.
All right. Okay. All right. Well, then our first issue, which the first story we're really going to talk about, and we're, like I said, it's a one-issue kind of one-shot deal. It introduces us to one new character, a girl by the name of Stacy, who pops up every once in a while throughout the rest of these issues. She's not a very big, important character, but the title of the story is called Daydreams and Believers. Gotham Central, issue 11. Daydreams and Believers. Writer Ed Brubaker, artist Brian Hurt, letterer Willie Schubert, colorist Lee Lowridge. A girl by the name of Stacy that turns on the bat signal just so happens to be fantasizing of romantically being involved with Batman. In this issue, we get a look at an outsider's perspective of the detectives at Gotham Central PD. And this is basically Stacy telling her friend that at first I thought she was telling her friend that she meets up with Batman and hooks up with him every once in a while.
Yeah. But this is a letter to her friend about how she gets moist thinking about Batman.
I think one of the most interesting aspects, again, I think we talked about this in the first volume, was about how, the Gotham Central PD is not allowed to turn on the bat signal because then they would have to actually acknowledge that they are in league with a vigilante. And what they do is they tempt that out.
It's so funny. And just like our theme music tonight from The Wire, there was so much in The Wire about red tape, having to figure out ways of doing things because, the direct logical way wasn't going to work. Mm-hmm. Here you have kind of an example of that in a silly comic book. Well, technically, the Gotham PD can acknowledge Batman.
Yeah.
So we'll have the temp employee do it instead. In plain view of whoever needs it turned on in the first place.
This is almost actually a good jumping on point for Volume 2. they take Stacy, who's a new person, going into Gotham Central, the GCPD, and she's kind of giving us the lowdown as she's writing to a friend about the people she works with. You know, you get kind of a glimpse into an outsider's perspective of the detectives that are there, which is nice. That way you kind of set up the characters for the next 11 issues that we're going to be talking about. But really, that's it. I mean, there isn't anything that sticks out of here to me.
Just one of those funny details about how the police precinct runs.
Yeah.
The major crime unit. Because it takes something like the bat signal, which was, I think, designed as a story point for Commissioner Gordon to interact with Batman. And then, okay, now we're stuck with it. What are we going to do with it?
Yeah, that shit wouldn't fly in today's day and age.
Right. Mm-hmm. So I think it's their way of kind of playing around with that particular detail and doing something kind of fun with it. Also, there's so many people who work in and out of a police precinct that are not cops. That are not detectives. So, civilian employees, like we have a bunch in the jail that do different things. They deal in property, they deal with records, releasing, they're part of the intake staff. So there's an entire, and that's at the jail. So there's an entire element of people working that are not cops, that do jobs that need to be done to keep the place running. And so this was sort of like an insight into that. And I think the stuff I was making a joke about it, but I think the stuff about her having the hots for Batman was they were like, well, we want to do this. We want to focus on one character and how they relate, and then we can use them later in the stories without having to spend more time on them because we gave them an entire issue. However, they were like, well, I think we also need to figure out a way to relate this in some way to Batman. And that's a lot of the fine line that Gotham Central walks is, here is a story about a major crimes unit in a big city. Oh, yeah, right. We write superhero comics.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mind reading this type of, storytelling. The fact we got to bring in the superheroes or supervillains at some point. I don't mind that. That doesn't bother me. As a matter of fact, I think you said this was, you enjoyed this one compared to Volume 1.
Yeah, no, I think it's getting better and better. Here's my issue. I think, it's one of those where superheroes get you in the door, but then once you start reading it, like, you don't need them. Like, this was less laden with Batman than the first volume was.
Yeah.
So the whole setup with the joke, I mean, I don't know if you're going to plug the plot synopsis in at some point here, but
Gotham Central, issues 12 through 15, Soft Targets, written by Ed Brubaker, also Greg Rucka, artist Michael Lark, letterer Clem Robbins, colorist Lee Loffridge. Issues 12 through 15, Soft Targets. During a budgetary discussion shortly before a very snowy Christmas, the mayor of Gotham is gunned down by a sniper in front of GCPD Commissioner Mike. At the crime scene, another call comes in as School Superintendent Purnell is shot on a playground. Trying to determine if the shootings were connected, as they are about to finish their work at the playground scene, the GCPD is shot at. Killing an officer and gravely injuring another, the sniper had been waiting the whole time. Tracking where the shots came from, a team find a laptop that says Batman for Mayor and other phrases that may support the Joker may be behind the shootings. Calling in Batman, he confirms their fears, and Gotham Central now must focus their efforts on finding the Joker before any more damage is done. As the team discover the gun that fired the shots, everyone is surprised when the station computers begin to show a live video feed of various Gotham locales with a countdown to the next sniper attempt. The team begin to narrow down the locations in the feed, while the new mayor advises the commissioner to gather up some Joker sympathizers, going by the name of Killer Clowns, to make the media believe that the police are in control. Finding the man that sold the gun to the Joker, they learn that the Batman has already visited the vendor. As the clock strikes 0 on the video feed, a fake gun pops on the screen with the word BANG on a flag dropped from the barrel. Now the timer is counting up. To what? We still don't know. A new video feed appears on the televisions, showing a captured member of the media, Angie Molina, tied and hanging upside down. Just as our team does not know where to turn on the steps of the station, the Joker appears, asking for directions, and is immediately arrested. The team now have to figure out a strategy to interrogate the Joker to find Angie before it is too late. Determining that the Joker turned himself in to use his capture as a green light for massive amounts of shoppers to hit the streets, the GCPD narrow it down that Angie Molina is in a toy store somewhere. However, shortly after, the Joker escapes and begins a shootout at the police station. Stacy is the only one left in the squad room, and as Joker finds her, he is about to pull the trigger when he is shot from behind. Meanwhile, Nate finds Angie and is about to rescue her when he finds a bomb set to go off within 4 minutes. Running out of time, Batman shows up. The bomb explodes and Angie is saved, but Nate lay gravely injured.
The whole thing with the Joker storyline was basically, it started with the Joker kind of shades of The Dark Knight, I think it was, where he takes a shot, someone shoots a sniper rifle at an important figure in Gotham. I don't know if it was I think it's the mayor. So the mayor the mayor gets shot
killed.
through a window.
He is killed.
And this is why we're using The Wire, music from The Wire as our theme for this tonight. There is a thing in The Wire, an episode where the mayor is meeting with one of the lieutenants, and lieutenant's like, if you're for real, I'll back you, and we'll make a run of this thing. Mm-hmm. He's like, no, I'm for real. I want to hear your ideas. I want a clean house. So this guy's like being groomed to be police commissioner. Guy who's running for mayor is like, back me, and not the guy currently sitting in that chair. I will make it rain for the police department, and we'll turn things around. Mm-hmm. At the he wins, and then I think at the end of that season, or at the end, whatever happens at the end of season 4, he's having a budget meeting, and they're like, okay, this is going well, everything's coming up roses. This mayor is awesome. Your school, your city schools are running a deficit in the millions of dollars.
Oh my gosh. And
it's like, just throw your pencil, throw your notepad, flip the table over at moments. Spoilers. And he just kind of looks utterly defeated. Like the color ran out of his face. He's like, how the hell are we supposed to deal with that?
I do not ever want to be a politician.
Now, the relative point here where everything connects is the beginning of season 5 is months later, and they've had to slash the police budget. So now cops are running around collecting overtime slips, but they haven't been paid on them. So they just have these books of
IOUs.
Yeah. And so you have cars breaking down because they don't have the budget to fix them. They don't have the budget to pay people to fix them. Everything's a wreck. The Baltimore Police Department is in ruin. And this Joker story opens up with them arguing about cutting overtime.
Yeah.
Which was the big point of contention in The Wire, season 5. It's the whole thing that gets the ball rolling for what McNulty does. That's why I'm relating the 2 points. Mm-hmm. So you have a situation where I want to say it's the new commissioner who's in the office, and they're arguing about overtime and it being misused. And it's like nah, the mayor's point of contention is like, nah, you guys are using your overtime to pad your checks. Like it's amazing how often you guys manage to nab somebody and have to do all your report writing at the end of your shift. And he's like, that's how policing works.
Yeah.
So you see the pro and con argument that was brought up in The Wire about the need for overtime and how if you take it away, you cause a ripple effect of negativity within your police force. And the mayor's like, go fuck your negativity. Mm-hmm. Like we're paying these people a wage. It's a living wage. Y'all can live without the overtime. Figure it out. And it's like, yeah, that's not how this works.
Yeah.
And then the mayor gets shot.
Yep. Yeah, he gets shot. He gets taken out, and then they obviously start tracking things down. As they're investigating it, I mean, another person gets shot, which happens to be a superintendent at a school.
Yeah.
He gets shot, and then while they're investigating that, the sniper starts taking pot shots at the police officers investigating it.
I want to say somewhere in there is where Batman shows up at one of the crime scenes. Like, it's the Joker, you dolts.
Yeah, I think he was on top of that for sure. When they finally track down the sniper, where the sniper was at, there's a laptop there. It says Batman for mayor. And a lot of this story, in my opinion, it's almost like a story about how the police department has to try and deal with the media and their reporting on the crimes that are going on. The Joker's a big part of this, obviously, but I mean, who does he end up capturing? He captures a member of the media, holds her at a some toy store, I think is how it ends up. There's a bomb planted there, but
you got to remember an important part about that. With all the bombs and everything around the city and these laptops, they evacuate the city. People make a run for it, and then the Joker gives himself up because there's no targets left in Gotham. So he turns himself into the cops, in a really funny way, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, he's asking for directions.
It's like, do you know the way to San Jose? And what? So yeah, he gives himself up to the police, and they're like, it's over, we got him. The guy just gave himself up. And then it's like, well, but for why? And you realize later on that, like, oh, this was because he needed people to come back for his plan to really take effect. Mm-hmm. So now this happens early enough in December that people have time to come back, but it's like 2 days before Christmas. So people are like getting all their Christmas shopping done the minute they come back. The streets are flooded. You can't get anywhere.
Right into his plan, too. That's exactly what he planned. Exactly.
Right. So now the streets are full again, and that's where his true plan comes together. Mm-hmm. It's pretty brilliant, as a matter of fact. But I think, like I said, Batman just showed up once to be like, yes, the Joker, idiots.
The other thing I thought was interesting was about how, like, they had to try and save face at one point because, you know, the town's going crazy. We got this sniper out there. They believe it's the Joker, or they know it's the Joker. So what they do is the mayor, the new acting mayor, is like, okay, well, we know there's these Joker sympathizers called the Killer Clowns. Go get them and round them up. And they're like these dumb idiot guys that have no idea what in the world they're following. I mean, they're supposedly they sympathize with the Joker, but they are not smart at all. But the whole reason that they go and grab them and round them up is so they could put on a show for the media. So the media and everybody else outside there will possibly believe that they have things under control, when in fact they don't.
This all happened in The Wire season 5. All right, so we were talking about the media aspect, and I don't want to get into the whole thing that happens in season 5, but in season 5, they talked about how sometimes you have to sensationalize something in order to get the resources you need to fight crime, solve whatever mysteries you got going on. In this particular case, you have I don't know if there's a direct parallel here, but you had the situation with the one reporter who got kind of strung up in the warehouse. You had this idea of like the reporter sort of reporting on the fact that, oh, it's over, they got the Joker, which played right into his hands. So there's a lot to be said about, in both the comic and in shows like The Wire, about the use of the media, both positive and negative, I guess is the point that I'm trying to make.
And the representation of the Joker here, pretty good. You said it was pretty ingenious on how he did things, which it's a very much a Joker-like thing to do. Yeah, he's a crazy madman, but he's also very methodical and knows what he's doing a lot of times. So chaotic, yes.
Joker is a performance artist. His crimes are more about creating a happening than they are. I mean, the Joker now. I think the Joker in antiquity, like in the 60s or whatever, he was just a bank robber who dressed like a clown. Mm-hmm. I think the Joker has sort of become more of I'm going to create a situation because I am editorializing on the state of man. Yeah. I have a point to make. So I'll make it by this elaborate gambit that I've created to screw with Batman and the police. Mm-hmm. And so that's basically what he was doing here. It was like, look, I'm going to create a situation where many people will be shopping in the street, and this is my remark about capitalism. Like, yeah. What?
And the thing is that he was playing everybody like a fiddle. He played the police department, he played the public, he played the media right into his hands to get all that to work together, because he knew how the police were going to react. And I mean, this is by far Gotham City's worst villain. How are our lowly police officers going to deal with trying to apprehend him? This is always the Bat's problem. And I mean, Batman, when it comes to like incarcerating this guy or arresting him or whatever, it's all the police department. And when he escapes, it's not the Batman who takes him down. It's somebody else, I think, shoots him, right? And it's somebody like in the police department that ends up shooting him. It doesn't kill him, but like takes him out to where he can be subdued, I guess. There's also a lot of talk about how why do we need the Gotham City Police Department? They're so ineffective in taking down these villains anyway. And there's a lot of discussion about the relationship that they have with Batman, and they feel a sense of pride. I remember talking about that in Volume 1.
So, somebody actually confronts Batman about that. This is, again, the part where it's like he's like the Joker, and I think one of the cops says to him, was like, why are you even bothering? You'll just do it yourself. And he's like, I can't look everywhere.
Yeah. You can't be everywhere.
That, yes, he's the super sleuth and crime fighter and everything, but much like Superman can't be everywhere all the time.
Yeah.
I think Batman sees the value in the police department. That was one of my issues with like The Dark Knight, was this presentation of the Gotham City Police that they were just utterly corrupt and inept. And it's like, no, Batman knows that there are good detectives. I think the story in like year one is that everyone's either on the take or ineffective. This is so far beyond year one at this point that I think you can tell the story of a police department that's basically functioning and solve most crimes and are doing their level best, but occasionally run up a guy who uses like mind control and shit.
Yeah.
Like fear gas and freeze rays, and there comes a point where it's not enough. You need something that can fight that. And so that's where the police and Batman work hand in hand.
Yeah. All right. So anything else on that before we get into our next story?
Nope. Hit it.
Okay. So next story is titled Life is Full of Disappointments. Gotham Central, numbers 16 through 18. Life is Full of Disappointments. Writer Ed Brubaker, artist Greg Scott, letterer Clem Robbins, colorist Lee Lothridge. There's a new shift commander by the name of Lieutenant David Cornwell, and he lets them know things are going to be run a bit differently. A new case arises where a dead girl by the name of Stephanie Becker is found in a dumpster. Investigating, a friend of the girl said she was drunk the night before and put into a cab. They get a lead when they find out the cab driver tried to use Stephanie's ATM card. However, the cab driver says she told him to use it to pay for the fare, but gave him the wrong numbers. He denies killing her and says he dumped the body when she became unresponsive because he didn't think anyone would believe him if he went to the police. News from pathology states that Stephanie Becker was poisoned with a chemical called Tets that may have made her appear drunk. Soon after the discovery, another victim is found poisoned, and it turns out she worked at the same place as Stephanie, Washburn Pharmaceuticals in the accounting department. A new team takes over, detectives Tommy Burke and Dagmar Prochnow, and the two visit Washburn Pharmaceuticals' accounting department and speak to the CFO, Mr. Matheson, who maintains the books may have been off, but says he's innocent. The next day, a detective by the name of Vincent, who apparently has family in the Gotham Mafia, is visited by the Huntress, telling him that a man by the name of Jack Inzerillo holds major stock in Washburn Pharmaceuticals, and Vincent visits Matheson, letting him know he is aware with whom he is doing business, and that they are laundering Inzerillo's money. However, Vincent walks away confident that Matheson had no hand in it. During this, Detective Jolie investigates the victims' desks in the accounting department and discovers one of the chemists from the lab was sleeping with the first victim, Stephanie Becker. Putting evidence together, she determines that the chemist spiked a candy jar with Tets, and the girl that sat across from her, the second victim, just happened to eat some of the candy a little too soon. In the end, the two detectives head to the lab where they are able to make the arrest.
Yes, I love this story. This is an episode of Law & Order.
Yeah, the only superhero that shows up is Huntress. She shows up and talks to that one guy, that one detective by the name of Vincent. Now, I know that she, I think, has ties to the Gotham.
Her dad was a mobster, if I remember correctly.
Okay, all right. So she talks to him because she knows that Detective Vincent has got some ties to the Mafia as well. And that's really it. She just kind of shows up, gives him a little bit of information, and then we're off and running still with our detectives. Who
They could have literally done that with her out of costume.
Yeah, you didn't even need her to be there. I mean, for those like 4 panels, because she legitimately shows up, tells him the information, and then leaves.
Yeah,
she's like, oh, okay, here, you need this. But really, it doesn't pan out because by the end of things, it was a crime of passion.
Yep. So it was nerd. What did they say? It was nerd falls in love with girl rejects him, so boy poisons girl, and fatty next door poisons herself.
Nothing big happens in here, so I don't have really anything else to say. It was a decent story. It was fun. It was an easy page turner. So,
it's so funny because like we're so used to doing superhero comics, or whatever. But I sometimes find myself just wanting to read something that has nothing to do with superheroes. Yeah, just a fun detective story. And then we're gonna get into that even with the next one where you have Harvey Bullock, who's like, no, clearly it's the Penguin. It's like, boy, is it not?
Yeah. Gotham Central, numbers 19 through 22. Unresolved. Writer Ed Brubaker, penciler Michael Lark, inker Stefano Gaudiano, letterer Clem Robbins, colorist Lee Lothridge. Detective Marcus Driver and Detective Josie McDonald investigate a hostage situation at McBurger's, and the aggressor only wants to talk to Driver. It turns out it's an old acquaintance by the name of Kenny. Detective Driver goes in and convinces Kenny to let the hostages go. Kenny begins talking about a tragedy that happened in their past while Driver and he were at high school in 1996, where most of Kenny's baseball team was killed in the locker room by a pipe bomb, leaving Kenny as the only functioning survivor. Kenny tells Driver that someone was in his head when he did it, and that he had to tell someone why he was about to do what he was about to do. Kenny then puts the shotgun up to his head and shoots himself in front of Detective Driver. After this, Driver gets permission to look into the bombing and goes to the evidence room to dig up info on the case. In an unopened box of evidence, they find Kenny's old hat that just so happened to be made by the villain Mad Hatter. Driver has a talk with the last guy that checked out the files for the case and never returned them, retired detective Harvey Bullock. Harvey says he has two theories. One gambling related, where members of the teams were throwing games, and the other where two nerdy types that were being bullied took revenge. Driver and Josie head to Arkham to talk to the Mad Hatter, and the Mad Hatter's actions lead the detectives to believe the two nerdy kids were involved. Driver and Josie interview the two nerds, and they deny being involved, but recognize that Mad Hatter lived in a boarding house in 1996 and helped them with computer projects. Meanwhile, Harvey Bullock takes matters into his own hand and heads to confront the Penguin, accusing him of being involved. Bullock then talks to Driver and McDonald and explains he believed it was Penguin behind it all because of the gambling angle. Speaking to the lady that ran the boarding house, the detectives don't come up with much. On the way out, they run into the daughter, who apologizes for her mother's odd behavior, as her mother was rather short with the two detectives. The detectives then revisit the Mad Hatter, but arriving, the place is put on lockdown, as the Mad Hatter is being led out of the facility by a guard that appears to be under mind control. As they are trying to escape, the cops shoot them both, and it is revealed that someone other than the Mad Hatter was controlling the correctional officer via a spare Mad Hatter hat. However, the correctional officer is dead, and Mad Hatter is hurt rather badly. At the station, still with no leads, Driver and Josie are visited by the daughter of the lady that ran the boarding home. She explains that her mother may have been involved in the original 1996 bombing because she may have done it to avenge her daughter's honor. Her daughter told her that she was raped by the team, which was a lie because she wanted to cover up the fact she had gotten pregnant having consensual sex with the star pitcher. Arresting her mom, they find the Mad Hatter's spare hat, confirming she was involved. Meanwhile, before hearing any of the news of who was responsible, Harvey Bullock has made his mind up that the Penguin was involved and goes to take revenge. On a rooftop, Driver and Josie confront him as Bullock has the Penguin at gunpoint. Telling Harvey what really happened, he nearly pulls the trigger based on Penguin's past, but decides not to and puts the gun up to his own mouth. Distracting Harvey, Driver is able to wrestle the gun away from him, placing Harvey Bullock under arrest. So what'd you think of the story, man?
Yeah, I thought there was a fun misdirect in there with Harvey and the Penguin and all of that. And there was a little like B plot there with Harvey going crazy and like beating up the Penguin. The Penguin's looking at like stop, get him off me.
Yeah, this Harvey Bullock. Did we talk about him in Volume 1? Because I do not remember. For some reason, I'm thinking we may have, but
I think it got brought up because I remember him. I remember them addressing the, tipping off the mob to shoot the guy that shot Gordon.
Okay, all right,
and basically like him having to walk away from Gotham PD. I like the relationship between him and Montoya. Whenever that gets brought up, I like the idea that like half the unit is like split on whether or not Harvey did the right thing. It shows like they're not just a monolith of opinions. Some people see the value in what he did. Some people like, no, that makes him just as bad as the criminals. And it does go to that like shades of gray. It also goes to the idea of burnout, just feeling like you uphold the law and nobody else is doing it. And then you just feel like, why bother? Clearly the only way to win is to become just as bad as the people you're putting away, which, there's something to be said about that line of logic. If that's all society's going to be, then why even bother?
Yeah, most of this story, even though we have the mystery of the Mad Hatter and how in the world is he involved, and again, there's a point where Mad Hatter's he's in Arkham Asylum at this time, but somehow
How useless is Arkham Asylum, by the way?
Extremely.
Haven't cured anyone.
Extremely. But yeah, Mad Hatter's in there and somehow he's controlling one of the guards. You're like, how in the world is this happening? I think we learn how that happens. I was still kind of fuzzy on the details. I know that
the boarding house lady is helping him, and she's, I think she knows how to use one of the hats, which she's my favorite character, man. Not since Ma Nucci have I been so in love with an old woman.
She doesn't have as much screen time as Ma Nucci here.
Oh, God. She's just like, you whore. So good.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we have the classic, we have the classic, like, just like you said, the misdirect where, we're leaning one way and then that lady's daughter shows up and she's like, let me tell you a story. and she proceeds to tell him about how she got pregnant by the star pitcher, and in order to save her mom from, I guess, having to deal with the fact that her daughter had a hand in her own deflowering. My gosh, I don't even know where I'm fucking going with that.
My mom got pregnant by the guy she was going to marry before my dad, and my grandmother actually made her go live in a home for like wayward girls.
Wow.
And then she had to have the baby, and then she gave the baby up for adoption.
No shit.
Yep.
No kidding. Wow.
The story of how I met my half sister.
That is insane.
Yeah, my grandmother, because she ended up not marrying the guy, and once that was the case, my grandmother was like, "Well, you're not keeping this baby," and they didn't believe in abortion, so she like made her go live in this home, and she had the baby. She had the baby with the purpose of giving it up for adoption, which is, I guess, what you did in the 70s. Yeah, and then when she had the baby and the baby came up for adoption, she was allowed to come home again.
So there's plenty of people out there like this. I mean, where this...
Yes.
And
that's all true story. That's my mom. That's my mom's story before she met my dad.
That's crazy. That's very... I mean, similar to this. I mean, the thing is that this lady, she was so ashamed that she was pregnant because she had sex with the star. Consensual sex. I mean, this was, she had consensual sex with this guy, but she spun it to her mom that she had been raped. So she, she obviously didn't have any hand in the matter.
Well, like clearly, like the grandmother, and this is what I brought that up because I see similarities in my grandmother with this woman about there is a very clear picture of what a young girl is supposed to be. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't reflect reality in many cases. So you kind of shove the square peg into the round hole, and you're like, well, we're going to make it fit.
Yeah.
And so this daughter, like afraid of how this woman was going to react, basically took matters.
Well, pretty much covered it up with a lie.
Yeah, like took matters into her own hands, I guess, which led to the unfortunate and untimely demise of this baseball team.
Yeah,
going back to Johnny, like he thinks he's schizophrenic, like he's hearing voices, he's having auditory hallucinations. Yeah, as it turns out, he's just being mind controlled.
It's all due to the Mad Hatter. The Mad Hatter lived at that boarding house, and then when the older lady, which I'm sure she has a name, but I didn't even get it in my synopsis, but when the older lady finds out about her daughter, she and I assume the Mad Hatter hatch a plan, mind control Kenny to take a pipe bomb into the locker room.
Like
and
you do.
It explodes and kills most everybody there. So yeah, it's a sad story. I mean, she's had to live with that, live with that decision that she made, that lie that she told her mom for years. And I don't know if she ever came out and said, I can't remember if she said she told her mom what that was all about. But yeah, her mom's like, but it was basically for the honor of her daughter that she did this. I want to hop back to Harvey Bullock real quick because a lot of this story is, and a lot of Brubaker, and Rucka is not in on this one, but a lot of what Brubaker brings to the table and Rucka is that they do a good job of, touching on the humanity in all of these players throughout these issues. And I don't really have a lot of that in my synopsis because it's just kind of hard to touch on, like, okay, yeah, so-and-so had this discussion with so-and-so, but you get a good idea of the personalities of each detective, the stuff that's kind of going on at home. I mean, I remember, I think in that Daydreams and Believers, Soft Targets. I mean, there was a lot of discussion in there about how this one guy was up for promotion and he didn't get like the commissioner job.
He was supposed to get I think either the sergeant or the lieutenant position.
Yeah, and there's a lot of that through here. So what you get, even though you have these kind of fantastic tales, these, well, I'd say grounded in reality tales with these supervillains, is you get the humanity as well. So jumping back to poor Harvey Bullock, who, just like you said, took it upon himself, goes and confronts the Penguin, and then still believes that the Penguin is responsible for this before finding out what actually happened. Goes and attacks the Penguin, has him on a rooftop, and has him at gunpoint, and is about ready to kill him. And then the result of that is Detective Driver and Josie McDonald get up there, and they're like, whoa, wait a second, man. Hey, let me tell you what really happened. And at that time, Harvey's just like decides, he's just about to pull the trigger and then lets the Penguin go and then puts the gun up to his own mouth and is about to kill himself. That's a tragic character right there.
I think he's a cautionary tale. I think he's a very true character. He give you life to the business of fighting crime and solving mysteries, and you realize you're shoveling shit against the tide. I think that's the struggle. You know, you struggle with your own morality. You struggle with the reality of your environment. You struggle with the reality of the people around you. You know, the people willing to take bribes, cut corners. Another person in another situation would have just shot the Penguin.
Yeah.
And certainly that urge is there. I mean, that's kind of the thing with the Batman comics. More so than I think the Superman villains who, yeah, they turn up. They kind of cycle through them every once in a while. You know, you have Darkseid that's out there. But Darkseid wasn't put in, like, Blackgate Prison either. You know, Darkseid comes from another planet.
Yeah.
You know, Bizarro, I think they figured something to do with him. But, you know, Batman's villains, and this was the story of Injustice, wasn't it? Where it's like, there was this cycle of Batman defeats one of his rogues gallery. They go to Arkham or they go to Blackgate, and then they're out again. They escape or they're released. And they do something, and more people get hurt, and they go back. Yep. And the cycle repeats itself. And it gets to the point where it's like, how many people do they have to hurt before we do something final about it?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and Batman's whole argument is, then we're no better than the people we're putting away, and then what's the point? But, you know, Superman, we talked about this when we talked about Injustice. Superman's point was, but we shouldn't be letting our loved ones get hurt. But it's a very basic argument, but you see his point.
Yeah.
Just, you know, I think Batman and Superman both have valid points to make. And so, you know, now that's Batman and Superman, like your paragons of like virtue. You boil that down to you take it down to the level of like a Harvey Bullock who doesn't have the luxury of having, you know, superpowers and money and computers and a butler and sidekicks and all of that. He's just a dude. And so you think about like all the pressure that he's got. You know, you've got the superheroes here and the supervillains there, and just the natural state of policing in a big city. It can get to a guy.
Oh yeah.
And I think Harvey gets painted like, if you watch the Tim Burton Batman, the guy that plays Harvey Bullock, you know, like the first scene he's in is like, oh, this guy's crazy. It's like, nah, drinking Drano. You know, like utterly unsympathetic, just a piece of shit character. And it's like, no, Harvey, I think, is sympathetic.
Oh yeah.
And I think there's more to him than what we've seen. I actually like the Harvey that was in Gotham. Gotham was as dumb as shit show, but the characters in Gotham I thought were interesting, and I liked that iteration of Harvey because that was a guy who he was trying to do what he thought was the right thing in a city that was utterly corrupt. Jim kind of got him away from some of the more unscrupulous ways he was doing things. But one of the things that made that show interesting was that him and Jim were constantly like going at it in terms of being realistic, being pragmatic, and being idealistic. So you have Jim, who's the idealist, and then you had him, who was the pragmatist. And he wasn't like a bad dude. So I think we need to cut Harvey a little slack.
I'd agree. I would agree. I mean, this guy he's seen it all, I'm sure. And, you know, I think that he felt that it was time to actually put an evildoer in the ground. And I think at one point when he was just about ready to pull that trigger, and I think it's stated in there that, you know, that everybody knows the Penguin's done bad things. It doesn't matter if he's done this one or not. But
yeah,
that's
a phrase often bandied about. He's like he's done all these crimes, but he didn't do this one.
Yeah.
And the argument becomes like, well, who cares? Mm-hmm. You know,
look at his resume.
Right. And it's like, okay, but then why? Why have a society? You know, we probably brought this up with the first one, but if you're really into police procedurals, if you are a fan of The Wire, if you're a fan of Law and Order, you really should be reading this book. It's fucking phenomenal.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you 100%. This is it's a very down-to-earth street level police procedural. Just with every once in a while, you'll get a cameo or a focus on a villain. I really enjoyed the Joker story. The Mad Hatter story was a page turner. I mean, every single one of these, I didn't come out of this going, oh, geez, that was dumb. You know, every single one of these was actually a good story. Yeah, if we do volume 3 at any point, I'm down for it, man.
Yeah, we'll figure out a place to put this on the schedule.
I like it. All right, well, let's get into plugs, my good sir. What do we got coming up on the Rattlich Inn Broadcasting Network?
Oh, boy, that's me.
Oh, boy.
All right, so this week, it's a tossed salad and scrambled eggs week, I tell you. Yesterday, we did The Crown Season 3. It's a new cast. I'm not in love with it, I gotta tell you. You can hear more about that in our TV party with myself and our two Canadian friends, Andrew Graham and David Wright. So check that out. No show tomorrow. It was supposed to be The Crown tomorrow, but we had to switch to Sunday. So I'm taking a night off. I'm going to watch the third part of Crisis on Infinite Earths, and then I'm going to go to bed. Wednesday is our last album review of the year. This week is Life of Agony, The Sound of Scars.
Oh, my. Oh, I bet that sounds great.
Oh, it's my scars are making such sounds.
That wouldn't be healthy.
And then this Thursday, we're going to whip out the old Long Road to Ruin. I'm going to show it to you, let you take a look at it.
Oh, boy.
You can take in all of our essence.
Oh, yeah.
That was last week. Open up your cloak and take in all of our essence of Jericho.
Oh, essence. Essence of the bubbly.
No, Jericho, Deathstroke's son, remember?
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that guy. I knew where he's going.
Anyway, we're going to do a Long Road to Ruin for the Santa Claus trilogy. This is like a show like 3 or 4 years in the making, by the way.
Oh, my gosh.
Like the one Long Road to Ruin I really wanted to do that we never did.
That's great. I'm glad you're going to finally get around to it.
Yep. So no On Trial for the month of December. Instead, we're going to do the Santa Claus trilogy. And then John War. Good God. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. No, John War is good for something. He's good for boxing coverage. So we're going to do Ortiz Jr. versus Solomon on DAZN. Jesse, what does DAZN rhyme with?
Calzone, sir.
Goddamn right. Yes. And then Saturday, we got some more combat sports coverage. This Saturday, we've got UFC 245, Usman versus Covington. You should watch this one, Jesse. Covington, he wears a MAGA hat to the cage.
Oh, what does MAGA stand for?
He's trying to make America great again.
Oh, my goodness.
He is Donald Trump's favorite fighter.
Fantastic.
He loves him some Donald Trump, and he's fighting Usman for the, I believe, welterweight title. There's a couple of other title fights on that card. So myself and Robert Winfrey, the famous Robert Winfrey, his latest podcast breaking down Volkanovski versus Aldo Montoya, Jose Aldo. Oof. So that's next week. Last week, or rather, that's this week. Last week we had Teen Titans by Jeff Johns, Knives Out, Rings of Saturn, Get 'em, Lady and the Tramp, the live-action movie from Disney+. Titans Season 2, baby. And we did Overeem versus Rosenstruck.
Rosenstruck. I went to the bakery today.
Got yourself some Rosenstruck?
A little bit of Rosenstruck. A little light on the garlic, please.
I had myself some delicious Rosenstruck.
Some pastry.
I'm done talking now.
All right, Mark Radulich is on his way to bed. All I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, is we've got Unspoken Issues out there. Our discussion on Shadow Man is on the network. We have a wiki rabbit hole, which I hope to get another one out for the Titans one that I did, which was fun. You might learn something. All right, well, for Mark Radulich, I am Jesse Starcher. We'll be catching you next Monday. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Thank you all for joining us. Make sure to give that Radulich in Broadcasting Facebook page a like to stay up on top of all the great podcasts we have to offer. We are at home on Spreaker, but you can also find us on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, and recently we have hit the air on Spotify. Find your favorite podcast platform and type in RADULICH to subscribe for some great content. If you enjoyed this show, please feel free to share and spread the word. And as always, we appreciate any feedback and look forward to entertaining you again soon.
I rolled out my coffin.
That's all right.
You tell him it's all right.
Yes, sir, Bob. Yes, sir, Bob. Lottie-dottie, Mark is all snotty. He don't cause trouble. He don't bother nobody.
Almost all that's a lie. I bother lots of people. Joker is shooting for atop the building, and Batman's nowhere to be seen. I don't know how to freestyle. I'm very white.
No, I got the power of the editing on my side. Editing, see? Editing on my side. Brubaker.
I just took some nighttime Mucinex, so if I start hallucinating, now you know why.
Gotta have me some of that candy. Did he just become a cop again? Did he stop becoming the Spectre?
I don't know.
I mean,
and in what crisis are we talking about here?
What continuity? Swerve, bro. Oh my, get him.
Listen, sissy pants, I know you don't like this sort of thing, but let me finish what I'm doing here. Take it easy, sissy pants. He said he didn't like combat sports once. I will never let him forget it because I'm a dick.
Oh, yes, sir.
You agreed with that a little too easily.
Oh, I mean, call me sissy pants.
I'm so tired.
Oh, boy. Well, let's kick it in, buddy.
Whoa.
Mark, you ever read any Amalgam? Okay. All right. Yeah, he's snoring over there. Okay.
How much is a pirate hat? Pirate.
You can say those things and not mean them. It's perfectly fine.
Celebrate amazing savings at your local Sprint store. Now through Sunday, November 17th, you can pick up the new iPad Gen 7 featuring a 10.2-inch Retina display and smart keyboard on us when you add a new line on a qualifying plan. That's right, get the new iPad on us when you add a new line at Sprint. There's never been a better time to switch. Hurry into your local Sprint store now through Sunday, November 17th to learn more. iPad 7 Gen 32 GB, $0 per month after 1917 monthly credit for 24 months credit. Apply within 2 bills. Requires new line on qualifying plan. If you cancel early, remaining balance due, tax due at sale.